Now I'll go to the part 2 of Bootstrap. So last session में part 1 देखा हमने Bootstrap का. Now let's go to the part 2. So what we'll learn today? So today we'll learn what is grid system. So playing with columns. Now typography. Manipulating text. Colors in Bootstrap here. एक कुछ टॉपिक से इसका आज कवर करेंगे. तो कल हमने क्या कवर किया था? What is Bootstrap? Why Bootstrap? How to use the Bootstrap from CDN? How to use the Bootstrap by downloading it? Then we had a bit about containers. Now the most important and the most required feature of the Bootstrap is the grid system. What is grid system in the Bootstrap? The Bootstrap grid system provides an easy and powerful way to create responsive layouts of all shapes and sizes. Bootstrap grid system provides an easy and powerful way to create responsive layouts of all shapes and sizes. 9. So grid system will help you to create layouts. And it's a very powerful way to create responsive layouts of all shapes and sizes. Now, Bootstrap grid system divides the device display into logical rows and columns. The Bootstrap grid system divides the device display into logical rows and columns, where every row will have 12 logical columns of an equal width. Where every row will have 12 logical columns of equal width. Since Bootstrap is responsive, the width depends on the width of the device. Fine. The Bootstrap grid system divides the device display into logical rows and columns, where every row will have 12 logical columns of equal width. Since Bootstrap is responsive, the width depends on the width of the device. Fine. The width depends on the width of the device. Now, so what grid system does? So it will divide the width of the device into 12 equal logical columns. I will divide the width of device in 12 equal logical columns with equal width. Now, what will the width of an individual column or single column? That depends on the width of the device. The width of device is 1200, so every column will be of 100 pixels. If the width of device is 600 pixels, so every column width will be 50 pixels. So it's logical, it's not fixed. It depends on the width of device. But what grid system will do, it will divide the display of your device into rows and columns, where every row will have 12 logical columns. So where every row will have the 12 logical columns where you can put the content. You can occupy any number of columns as per the requirement of the content. So from that 12 logical columns, it's not physical, it's not fixed. So 12 logical columns will be there. You can occupy any number of columns as per your requirement of the content. So out of that, you can occupy any number of columns as per the requirement of the content of that. Now here, so what we can do, so grid system provides you two classes, row. So grid system provides you two classes. One is row. So row class will help you to create a row in a grid system. So row class will help you to create a row in a grid system. So row class will help you to create a row in a grid system with that. So row class will help you to create the row in a grid system with that. The row class will help you to create a row in a grid system with that. Fine. So it will help you to create the row in the grid system of them. Let me check. So links सबको पहुंचाए क्या? So row is the column. So row is the basically a column. The row will have the 12 logical columns of them. Now to create the column, so Bootstrap provides you the class called dash star dash star. So to create the column inside the row, so Bootstrap provides you a class called dash star dash star. So the row class is used to create one row and call class help you create so the column there. So one column and where first star indicates the breakpoint or a device that you want to target. So we can call it as in breakpoint or a device that you want to target. And second star will tell you how many columns you want to occupy. And second column will tell so how many we can say columns you want to occupy out there. So how many columns you want to occupy. Fine. So row class will help you create a row and one row will have the 12 logical columns and column can be created in call class. In the call class, we can specify the two stars. So called dash for star it tells you the we can say device of that. So the first star will tell you the device here. So it will tell you the, so we can say device that you want to target. So device that you want to target and second star will tell you. So second star kya batayega? So it will tell you. So how many columns you want to occupy. So how many columns you want to occupy here. So second star will tell you how many columns you want to occupy here. Now, the first star in call class indicates the device width, and the second star indicates how many columns you want to occupy here. Now, example, if you say dot call dash md dash 4, so it will occupy width of the four columns to create the column in medium size device of that. So if I say call dash MD. So MD tells you want to target the medium-sized device. Yesterday we had a word about this. So MD will tell you, so you want to target the medium-sized device with a 4. So 4 is the size of the column that you want to occupy. So if you say dot car dash MD dash 4, so it will occupy width of 4 columns to create column in medium-sized device here. Now, so what we have is so call dash star. So अगर आपने call dash star दे दिया, so it will by default target a small device. So call dash star will by default target the small device, screen width less than so 576 pixel. So it will target device with screen width is less than 576 pixel here. Now call dash sm dash star, so small device, screen width equal or greater so 576 pixel. Yesterday we had a bit about this. So call dash MD dash star. So we'll have the 768 pixel here. And call dash LD dash star. So large device width equal to or greater than 992 pixel and extra large and extra large. So we have this categories of that. So the second star can be excess. Excess is optional if you do not specify. Second star by default it will be excess. If you specify, it's very good. So Excel excess के अलावा we have the SM. So small MD, then we'll have the LG, we'll have the XL and double XL with that. Now, and last star indicates how many columns you want to occupy. So last star indicates how many columns you want to occupy. If you say 4, so it will occupy 4 logical columns for your content. If you say 5, so it will occupy the 5 logical columns for your content. If you say 6, it will occupy the 6 logical columns for your content of that. Now, some rules. So rows must be placed within Dart container. So row must be placed within Dart container. So Dart container. So yesterday we had a bit about container. So either fluid container or fixed width container. But row should be part of a container. So you cannot create the row without container. So container के बगैर हम row create नहीं कर सकता. So row should be the part of the container of that. Now use rows to create horizontal group of columns. So rows का purpose क्या है? To create the horizontal group of columns. So rows container पहले container बनाएंगे, then we'll create a row, and in a row we'll create the columns. And content should be placed within the column. So whatever the content that you want to place, it should be inside the column, and only columns may be immediate children of a row. So row के बाद immediate columns हम बनाएंगे. So row में content हम नहीं लिखेंगे. So content should be inside columns. So content जो हमेशा कहाँ पर होनी चाहिए? Columns के अंदर होनी चाहिए. So content should be always inside the column there. Right. So let's have the demo of the grid system. So we'll switch to the Visual Studio. So yesterday we had created one project here. So we had created test controller. Now in this particular project, so we'll add one more action here. So public action result, and here we'll say grid system. And here from we can return the view and what we can do. So we'll add a view for this. So I'll say right click here, we'll say add a view. And the add view, say MVC5 view, so grid system. Okay. Let me check. I think the project is running. No, it's not running. Okay. So what I did, so I created a small problem. So we'll use the Visual Studio 19 here. So Visual Studio 22. So my 22 version do not have support for MVC. So we'll just open this project in Visual Studio 19, whether which Visual Studio you use, or if you do not use the Visual Studio, doesn't matter. So Bootstrap is same everywhere. So if you use the Java, PHP, Python, .NET, anything, so Bootstrap is same. Bootstrap is just the CSS framework. It provides you the built-in CSS classes, and you can apply those built-in CSS classes to create the responsive website or web design with that. Now here we have the grid system. So let's add the view for this particular grid system here. So I'll right click in this action and we'll say, okay, so it's loading, still it's loading, not it completed here. So you'll find here it's loading the packages. Now let's add here. So let's add view and we'll say MVC5 view and we'll make it grid system. Now similar to index view, so what we'll do, so we'll add the references of the bootstrap.css and bootstrap.js file. We'll go to the content folder, and the content folder will drag and drop the bootstrap.mean.css file here. And from JS folder, so we'll add the reference of. So we'll go to the script folder and we'll add the mean.js here. Now it's a class container here. And in the container class, so it's a class row. Now in this row class, it's a class called dash md-12. So by this, I am telling to the Bootstrap, so I want to create one container and one row in that container. And in that row, so I want to create one column which target to the medium-sized device, and with number of columns that I want to occupy is 12. So I want to occupy entire row. So when I say 12 columns, so we want to occupy the entire row. So if I say 4, so it will occupy the 4 columns here. So it's a first style here, and we'll say first cell again, and height it will take as per the content. So it's the first cell. So when we say column, so it will be always a width. Now let's create, we can say one more column. So how much columns left after this 4 column? So 8 columns left with that. So you can create 8, you can occupy any number of columns from that 8 columns as per your requirement of that. Now we can, at the end, every row should have the 12 columns of that. So 12 logical columns. Now it's a div here. It's a class called dash md dash. Suppose if I create one more column with the size 4, so we'll say first cell, we'll say second cell here, and we'll say something called second cell here, and we'll say second cell here. Now it's a div, we'll say class called dash md dash 4, and we'll say third cell here, and we'll say third cell here, and we'll say third cell here. So now it will create one row, and that one row will have the, we can say 3 columns, and each column is of size 4. So we'll find here, so 4 size columns. So 3 columns got created. So first cell, second cell, and third cell there. So first cell, second cell, and third cell there. Okay. So the first cell, second cell, and third cell of that. Now you're not able to understand the columns separate. So columns are not separated. Now to separate that column, will create a small embedded CSS. It's not recommended to create embedded CSS, but just to show you. So the separation between the columns. So I'm creating one small class as a box, and that box class will have the border 2 pixel or 1 pixel solid, and this is called green. Now I'll apply the box class with this column, so we can apply the multiple CSS classes. So separated by the space. So we can apply the multiple CSS classes separated by the space here. So you'll find here. So 3 columns will be there outside 4. So 3 columns will be there outside 4. So 4, 4, 4. 4, 4, and 4. Okay. So the first cell, second cell, and third cell here. So 4, 4, 4, 4 sides. Now you can create another row. So I'll create one more row. Now in this row, so it's a du suppose class row. So it will create one more row. And in this row, suppose we want to occupy. So it's a class called dash md dash 6, or we'll say 3 here. So it's a first cell. And we'll say first cell again and first cell. Now to separate this column, we'll apply the box class here. Now I'll create one more column here. So class called dash, we'll say md dash 3 here. Now I'll apply the box class of 3 plus 3, suppose 6. Now it's a second cell here. And then we'll have the du, and we'll say class called dash md dash 3, will say box here. Third cell br here, and we'll say copy this, copy this, copy this here. Now I'll say refresh here. So I'll say 3, 3, 3 size cells, 3 plus 3 plus 3, 9. So remaining is again 3. Now instead of 3, suppose if I say 6, I want to occupy all 6 columns here. So I'll find here so 3, 3, and 6. So you can create the row and you can occupy any number of columns as per your requirement. You can occupy any number of columns as per your requirement here. So class row, and we'll say du something a class called dash md dash 2, will say first cell. And here we'll say du, so class called dash md dash 2, and we'll say second cell. And here, so 2, 2, that got 4. Suppose I want, so 8 column size here. So you can occupy any number of columns as per your requirement. So it's a third cell here, and we'll have the third cell here, and we have the third cell here. I'll save this, and here we'll have the third cell, second cell here. I'll apply the box here. We'll say box, and we'll say box here, and we'll say box here. 2, 2, and 8. Now I'll say du class row. So du class called as, so for md dash 7, and we'll say box here. I'll say first cell. I'll say du class called dash md dash 7, and we'll say box here. 12, second cell, second cell, second cell. So 7 plus 5, 12. ठीक है, the first cell, second cell, the first cell and second cell. So first cell and the second cell here. Fine. So we can occupy any number of columns as per your requirement of them. So you can also target the device. This is the grid system. So you can also nest the columns inside the grid. So Bootstrap grid columns are also nestable. That means you can put rows and the columns inside existing columns there. Now, however, the formula for placing the columns will be the same. So the sum of the number of columns should be equal to 12 or less within a single row. So again, so if you want to nest the column inside a column, so you can nest column inside column. You cannot nest column inside row or row inside, you can say row. So if you want to nest row, so again, a row will be nested inside the column there. So, and when you nest a row inside a column, so that row will have again 12 logical columns of that. Fine. So 12 logical columns. So here is the example. Now let's create the nested, we can say columns here. Now suppose we create one more row, so it's a du class row. And in this we'll say du something called class call dash md dash 6. So it's a first cell. I'll say du, we'll say class call dash md dash 6. And here say second cell. Okay. So call dash md dash 6, the first cell, and call dash md dash 6, second cell. Now suppose in first cell I want to nest the row. So I want to create suppose 3 rows. So in this first cell, I want to create 3 rows, suppose. Now, so we'll create a first row here. So I'll just delete the content. So we are nesting a row inside a column. So I'll say a row. So first row here. Now we'll create one more row. So du, and we'll say class row. And we'll create one more row. And in that row, we'll say du something called class row. Now in this row, suppose I want to create 2 columns. One is of size call dash md dash suppose 5. The box is the first cell. And suppose we create one more column here. So class call dash md. Not necessary that you should create a logical column. You can also go with 5. Remaining space in the row will be blank. So it's the second cell. So it will create one row inside this 6 size column, and that row will have the 5 and 7. So if you're not able to differentiate, we'll say 3 and we'll say something called, so 3 and 9 here. So I'll find the first cell and the second cell. Now in suppose second row, so we'll create 4 columns of size 3. So class called dash md dash 3, and we'll say box here. As per your requirement, I'm just showing you a demo here. We'll say second cell here, and we'll say third cell, and here we'll have the fourth cell here. We'll find the first cell, second cell, third cell, and the fourth cell. The first cell, second cell, third cell, and the fourth cell here. Right. Now it's a du class call dash md dash. We'll say 2. We'll say first cell. The class call dash. So md dash 10. We'll say second cell. So sorry, not 10. Okay, we'll say box here. I'll say box. So we got the 2 and the 12. So third में 2 and 12 मिल गया. Height will be occupied as per the content. अगर आप content बढ़ा दोगे किसी सेल में, तो उसका height और बढ़ जाएगा. and every cell will have the same height from one row. एक रो से हर एक सेल का हाइट क्या होगा, सेम होता है. ठीक है. So first cell, second cell, second cell, second cell, second cell. Okay. Now creating a variable width columns. So you can use it to call that breakpoint dash auto class to size the columns based on the natural width of their content. तो यहाँ पर तो हम क्या कर रहे हैं? So we are specifying the size 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Now, if you want the size to be naturally created or allocated as per the we can say requirement or content of the column there. So how we can do that? So let's say call dash breakpoint dash auto. So call dash breakpoint dash auto there. So try out the following example to see how it works. Okay. So यहाँ पर एक example है. So auto will take the automatic width of the cell as per the requirement here. Now suppose if we minimize these rows. And we'll create one row. So we'll say du, we'll say class row. Also du, so class call dash md dash 4, and we'll say box. We'll say first cell, and we'll say du class call dash md dash auto. Second cell, and we'll say du class call dash md dash 2, and we'll say box here, and we'll say box here, and we'll say third cell. So auto will occupy the width as per the requirement of the content of that. Okay. So first cell, second cell, third cell. Okay. So first cell, second cell, and the third cell. So first cell, second cell, and the third cell. Okay. So if you increase the content width, it will take the width as per the content here. So जितना required है content को width, उतना occupy करेगा with auto. So with auto here. Okay. With auto. So with auto. The third cell and second cell here. Fine. So auto will occupy the width as per the requirement of the content. Alignment of the grid columns. So you can use the alignment utility classes to vertically or horizontally align the grid columns inside a container. Try out the following example to understand how it works. So you can also align the content. So you can use the classes dot align dash item dash start, align dash item dash center, align dash item dash end to align the grid columns vertically at the top, middle, bottom in the container respectively, depending on your requirement. तो स्टार्ट में अलाइन कर सकते हैं, सेंटर में, एंड में. तो कंटेंट को अलाइन कर सकते हैं, आइटम्स को अलाइन कर सकते हैं. तो उसके अलावा रो के अंदर के जो कॉलम्स है, लेट मी चेक. तो यहाँ पर कुछ अलग क्लासेस हैं. ओके. और यहाँ पर थोड़े अलग क्लासेस है. जस्टिफाई कंटेंट है, जस्टिफाई कंटेंट है, जस्टिफाई कंटेंट स्टार्ट. लेट मी चेक विद दिस. So I'll go to the Visual Studio. Now suppose we create a class, a row, and here in the row class, we'll create a column. So class called dash md dash 12, or we'll say 4, and we'll say box here. And here we'll say first cell. We'll just copy this. Okay. Now we have the first cell here. Now suppose we'll say align item center. The line item center is not working with row. So sorry. So we have the class justify content, we can say center. Now your column is in the center. Now if I say justify content at the end, the column will be in the end. And by default, justify content at the start. So it's not aligned, so it's justified. Take care. So justify the content at the start, center, and the end. Now we can justify the content here. Alternatively, you can use the class justify content around, a core class justify content around, which will help you to distribute grid columns evenly. तो ग्रिड कॉलम्स के इवनली डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करने के लिए हम इसको यूज करेंगे हाफ साइज स्पेसेस ऑन आइदर एंड तो दोनों एंड से हाफ ऑफ स्पेस को डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करने के लिए हम इसको यूज करेंगे सो वेयर एज यू कैन यूज द क्लास डॉट जस्टिफाई कंटेंट बिटवीन टू डिस्ट्रीब्यूट द ग्रिड कॉलम्स इवनली वेयर द फर्स्ट कॉलम प्लेस्ड एट द स्टार्ट एंड लास्ट कॉलम प्लेस्ड एट द एंड होता है ठीक है तो जो स्पेस है आप चाहे तो उसको डिवाइड कर सकते हैं जैसे यहाँ पर सपोज मैंने 2 कॉलम्स बना दिए तो 3-3 साइज के तो बाय डिफॉल्ट ये क्या करेगा so either it will be at the start or either it will be at the end so if I say end तो दोनों कॉलम एंड से आएंगे ठीक है एंड से आएंगे तो हम चाहे तो उसको जस्टिफाई कंटेंट अराउंड कर सकते हैं तो अराउंड से क्या होगा इट विल ये जो ब्लैंक स्पेस है सो इट विल डिवाइड दैट ब्लैंक स्पेस इक्वली between the columns of that. So blank space को equally divide करेगा between the columns of that. तो between the columns क्या करेगा blank space को equally divide करेगा. So also justify content around here. So here and here. So justify content around. So justify content जो है क्या करेगा around करेगा. So it will justify the content around. ठीक है also second cell में the first cell and second cell में तो justify content around तो evenly distribute करेगा now इसके अलावा instead of around if I want between तो between क्या करेगा so start end में नहीं so in between so in between दोनों के बीच में उस स्पेस को डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करेगा तो यहाँ पर एक आ गया कॉलम यहाँ पर एक आ गया और स्पेस कहाँ चला गया दोनों के बिटवीन so you can justify the content start in center around and in between here ठीक है now align the grid columns here so grid columns को हमने लिखा है यहाँ पर so offsetting the grid columns so grid column को हम offset भी कर सकते हैं offset मतलब we can keep the gap before तो कॉलम के पहले हम कुछ गैप रख सकते हैं यूजिंग द ऑफसेटिंग तो ऑफसेटिंग द ग्रिड कॉलम सो यू कैन आल्सो मूव द ग्रिड कॉलम्स टू राइट फॉर अलाइनमेंट पर्पस यूजिंग कॉलम ऑफसेट सो कॉलम ऑफसेट से हम क्या कर सकते हैं बिगनिंग में कॉलम के बिगनिंग में शुरुआत में ऑफसेट रखते हैं जैसे प्रिंटिंग में ऑफसेट होता है वैसे आप ऑफसेट यहाँ रख सकते हैं ऑफसेट SM ऑफसेट MD ऑफसेट LG स्टार विल टेल यू नंबर ऑफ कॉलम कितना ऑफसेट देना है तो इफ ऐसे ऑफसेट MD 4 तो 4 ऑफसेट रखेगा शुरुआत में Now here is example of the offset to this, so you can use the offset. So let's have the demo of the offset here. Now for offset demo, we'll create a div here and we'll say class a row. I will say div class something called container. So div class row and we'll say div class container here. And we'll say div class तो यहाँ पर हम क्या बनाएंगे, कॉलम बनाएंगे, सो कॉल डैश md डैश ओ। ठीक है, so call dash md dash 4 here. Now here, so we'll say first cell. So first cell, okay. So what we can do is, we'll get the first cell here. Now first cell को will apply the box class. तो फर्स्ट सेल में यहाँ पर क्या होगा, बॉक्स क्लास लग जाएगा ना, उसमें ऑफसेट देना है शुरुआत में, तो विल से समथिंग कॉल्ड, तो ऑफसेट डैश 1 2 3 4 डायरेक्टली दे सकते हैं, या फिर आप स्पेसिफिक डिवाइस को भी टारगेट कर सकते हैं, एमडी सपोज टू। तो एमडी जो है मीडियम साइज डिवाइसेस में 2 साइज का ऑफसेट देगा यहाँ पर, तो विल पुट द ऑफसेट ऑफ 2 साइज है, तो 2 साइज का ऑफसेट यहाँ पर देगा, विल कीप द ऑफसेट ऑफ 2 साइज है, ठीक है। सो ऑफसेट ऑफ 2 साइज है, तो ऑफसेट ऑफ 2 साइज है। नाउ हियर, तो यहाँ पर जो ऑफसेट टॉप 3 साइज दे दिया, तो अभी क्या हो गया, सो 4 + 2 6 6 + 4 10 10 प्लस md3 नहीं दे सकता है, क्योंकि इट विल गो बियॉन्ड 12 12 की बियॉन्ड जाएगा, तो सो 3 3 देंगे, तो 6 6 + 12, तो यहाँ पर 3 का ऑफसेट आएगा, 3 को कॉलम आएगा, 3 का ऑफसेट एंड दी, तो विल से कॉलम साइज 4 हियर। हाँ, तो कॉलम साइज 4 हियर। तो Bootstrap 5 uses default font size. तो टाइपोग्राफी भी है Bootstrap में, तो Bootstrap 5 uses a default font size of L1 rem. So by default, typography is regarding the font or text. So typography. So Bootstrap में typography देखते हैं, तो by default Bootstrap font size will be 1 rem, 16 pixel by default. Its line height is 1.5. In addition, all P elements have the margin top 0 and margin bottom 1 rem, 16 pixel by default here. Now, typography provides you the classes using which you can manipulate the text content, so you can change the color, style, alignment, headings using typography classes of them. तो टाइपोग्राफी क्लासेस से आप कलर चेंज कर सकते हैं, स्टाइलिंग चेंज कर सकते हैं, अलाइनमेंट, हेडिंग चेंज कर सकते हैं, फॉन्ट साइज चेंज कर सकते हैं। तो बाय डिफॉल्ट जो फॉन्ट साइज होता है वो 1 रेम का होता है, और टॉप मार्जिन 0 होती है, और 1 रेम इज इक्वल टू 16 पिक्सल, तो 1 रेम जो है 16 पिक्सल होता है अराउंड। हाँ, तो टाइपोग्राफी में ढेर सारी क्लासेस है, टेक्स्ट प्राइमरी, टेक्स्ट सेकेंडरी, टेक्स्ट सक्सेस, टेक्स्ट डेंजर, टेक्स्ट वार्निंग, टेक्स्ट इन्फो। तो जब आप टेक्स्ट प्राइमरी क्लास लगा दोगे, तो टेक्स्ट का जो फोरग्राउंड कलर है, सो टेक्स्ट क्लासेस इज फॉर फोरग्राउंड कलर, तो उसका कलर चेंज हो जाएगा। सो टेक्स्ट प्राइमरी विल मेक इट ब्लू, so text secondary will make it gray, text success will make it green, text danger will make it red, text warning will make it yellow, text info will make it teal. Now text light will make it gray color, text dark will make it dark gray color, so light gray color, dark gray color. Body will use the default body color. So muted, white, black 50, so 50% transparent. So text color से आप foreground color change कर सकते हैं. Now how we'll do that? So let's create a view for it. So we'll say something called so public action result, and he'll say typography. And in the typography, we'll say written view here. We'll say add view. Okay. So we'll say class container here. And we'll say div class row here. And div class call dash md dash 2. So we'll say first style. So right now we'll not worry about the column. So we'll create a 12 column here. Now we'll create suppose one heading. So say typography. We'll create another heading, or we can also create the span tag. So depend आपकी जो भी requirement है. So we'll say primary. So we'll say danger, success. So warning, info, black. Now, if you run this by default, अगर आप इसको by default run करोगे, तो it will get you the heading and the span. ठीक है. Fine. So typography, so primary, danger, success, warning, info. By default ऐसे दिखेगा. Now apply the text color here. So say class text success. So we'll make it green. So class text primary blue. So class text danger. So class text suppose the light. So class text warning. Class text info. तो इसका foreground color change हो जाएगा typography green primary danger warning and info. Now similar for with we can say foreground we can have background. So BG primary, BG secondary, BG success, BG danger, BG warning, same color but it will be the background color. So BG info, BG light, BG dark, BG white, BG transparent here. Okay. So if I copy this again and here, if I paste it here, not here. So we need to create another row because one row can have only 12 columns. So if you create more than 12, it will automatically shift it to new row. So instead of automatically shifting it to new row, we'll create a new row here. And instead of text, suppose if I use the BG, so you'll get the same color, but it will be in the background. So it will be in the background here. So BG success, BG primary, BG danger, BG light, or BG warning, BG info. The background color. So if you use the BG, so it will change the background color there, and text, it will go to foreground color. Now headings. So headings भी हैं, so you can define all HTML headings H1 to H6 वो तो आप use कर सकते हैं same way. जैसे भी हमने H1 use किया. In the same way you define a simple HTML document. You can also utilize the heading classes. तो headings tags तो है H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6 उसको तो utilize कर ही सकते हैं. उसके अलावा Bootstrap provides you heading classes from H1 to H6 on other elements. So दूसरे elements को अगर आपको heading बनाना है, so if you want to make other elements as a heading. So if you want to apply the style on the elements text, same as the headings here. So we can do the class H1, class H2 like this. तो आप चाहे तो heading classes भी लगा सकते हैं अगर heading बनाना है किसी चीज को. तो यहाँ पर suppose if we add one more row, and if we have the row here, so we have this column here in this row. So I'll say call dash md dash 12. Now if I say span, I'll say first, I'll say br, There's a second BR. There's a third BR. I will say fourth BR. I will say fifth BR. By default, it will not get any kind of, we can say thing. It will be just your simple span tag. Now we can convert it to headings or say class H1. So we can apply the class H1 here. So we can apply the class H2. So this is Bootstrap classes. These are not the tags. So there are the Bootstrap classes, and these classes will make it heading. So let's say class M H4. So let's say class something called H5. So the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth here. The first, second, third, fourth, and fifth here. The first, second, third, and fourth, and fifth here. Right. Now, beside that, you can have the display heading. So Bootstrap also provide display heading that can be used when you need heading to stand out. अगर आपको large heading चाहिए, इससे भी बड़ा H1, H2, H3 से भी, so we can use the display headings. Now, display headings will stand out the content. So display headings are displayed in large font size but lighter font weight. तो फॉन्ट का जो वेट है वो थिन हो जाएगा, दुबला हो जाएगा फॉन्ट, बट साइज उसका बड़ा हो जाएगा. So you can use the classes display 1, display 2, display 3, display 4, display 5 to apply the display headings here. So you can apply the display headings to, we can say headings tag with them. Fine. So let's apply the display heading tag there. So du will say class, and here will say row, and we'll say du suppose we'll say class call dash md dash 12. Now say h1, so first heading. We'll say h2 second heading. h3 will say third heading, and h4 so the fourth heading. Now by default देखोगे तो it will be just your regular headings like this. Now if you want to stand it out, so we can say class so display 1. So display 1 will make it large. Now say class display 2. It will make it more large. So second level. So third level. So we can say levels also. Is from level before third. So display 3. And we'll say display 4. So class display 4. Okay. So the first heading, second heading, third heading, and the fourth heading. The first heading, second heading, third heading, and the fourth heading. So here, text alignment. So you can easily align the text to left, right, center using the text alignment classes. So text को आप easily align कर सकते हैं left में, right में, center में using text alignment classes here. So text start में आएगा, center में आएगा, end में चला जाएगा. Now you can also do the text transformation. So you can do entire text in lowercase, uppercase, capitalize. So let's have one more row here. So we'll say class row, and we'll say du class call dash md dash 12. Now, so we have the span. So welcome to du. So by default, it will be here. Now, if I say class text dash, so span will occupy only that much content. We'll just put the text here. So by default, text will be at the beginning. By default, text beginning में होगा यहाँ पर ही. Now let's say something called text dash center. तो ये टेक्स्ट सेंटर में चला जाएगा। तो ये टेक्स्ट डैश एंड, so end and text that start center and the end here. Now similar way, so we can work with the text here. So this is Bootstrap used to demo. तो इसको हमने एक पैराग्राफ में डाल दिया या स्पैन में डाल दिया, 1 paragraph, 2 paragraph and 3 paragraph. We can also do the text transformation. So how we can do the text transformation? Text dash will say capitalize, so सबको capitalize कर देगा, sorry, first letter को capitalize कर देगा, text dash upper, so सबको capitalize कर देगा, और text dash low, so सबको lower case में convert कर देगा, so lower case. तो capitalize हर एक word के पहले letter को capitalize करेगा. So welcome to DU. So यहाँ पर this is Bootstrap, T capital, I capital, B capital, U capital, T capital, D capital. तो ये हर एक word capital, हर एक alphabet capital, यहाँ पर हर एक alphabet small. So you can transform the text using text capital, text upper, text lower, like this. Now, so text coloring हमने already देखा है, text primary. तो आज इसको यही